Have you ever wondered why the more you're there for everyone, the more alone you feel? You answer every message, you pick up every call, you show up again and again, thinking that love means availability, that kindness means accessibility, that to be good is to be open. And yet, the more available you are, the more invisible you become. You give until you're emptied out. You listen until your own thoughts feel like noise. You say yes, while your soul is screaming no. You've been trained to feel guilty for needing space, for choosing silence, for wanting time alone without having to explain it. You were told that withholding yourself is selfish, that creating distance is a sin against love. But let's be honest, what they really wanted was your compliance, your constant presence, your predictable yes. Because the truth is, people don't just feed off love, they feed off access. And if you give them unlimited access, they will take it. Not always out of malice, but out of habit, out of expectation, because they've learned that your boundary is as soft as your heart. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." So instead, they come to you, not to love you, but to escape themselves. You've become their mirror, their sponge, their therapist, their buffer against the chaos of their own life. But who holds space for you? Who do you run to when you're depleted, when you're not okay? Silence answers, and in that silence, you realize something devastating. You've been present for everyone else's healing, but absent from your own. You don't need to vanish to find peace, but you do need to retreat. Not to escape the world sound, but to reclaim yourself. This is not about becoming cold or distant, it's about remembering this. From the time you were a child, you were taught that goodness meant selflessness. Be nice, be helpful, don't be difficult, don't say no. You were rewarded for obedience, not honesty, praised for politeness, not boundaries. And slowly, the lessons sank in. Love means giving everything. Being loved means disappearing gracefully. You became available not because it felt right, but because you were conditioned to believe that it was your job. Your nervous system was trained to associate safety with being agreeable, with being useful, with always saying yes. But here's what no one told you. That kind of love isn't love. It's survival. It's a performance, scripted and rehearsed, so you don't lose connection, so they don't leave, so you're not abandoned. And while you were applauded for how much you gave, no one noticed how much it cost you. You've been living under a silent contract. I will be there for you, as long as you don't reject me. You've been overextending, over-explaining, over-performing, just to keep the peace. But peace that requires your silence isn't peace, it's control. Carl Jung understood this deeply. He believed that the persona, the mask we wear to fit in, often becomes a prison. You crafted a version of yourself that made others comfortable, one that was always reachable, always ready, always fine. But every time you said yes when you meant no, you betrayed yourself. Every time you stayed quiet just to avoid disappointing someone, you disappeared a little more. And now, you feel it. That strange hollowness, that ache you can't name. It's not depression, it's not burnout, it's self-abandonment. The world taught you to be everything for everyone, except yourself. But here's the thing. You can't heal in the same environment that broke you. You can't grow if you're constantly being consumed, and you can't be whole if you never belong to yourself. So maybe it's time to question the script, to rewrite the definition of love, to stop mistaking availability for worth, because the moment you realize your presence is a gift, not an obligation, everything begins to change. Availability is not love, constant access is not compassion, and being needed at is not the same as being seen. You keep answering messages the moment they arrive. You keep showing up, even when you're exhausted. You keep smiling, even when your soul is screaming. You say, "I'm just being there for people." But deep down, you know the truth. You're terrified of what happens if you stop, because you've built your identity around being needed, around being reliable, around never letting anyone down. But here's the cost: you're never alone, yet you feel completely unseen. You're constantly praised, but rarely understood. You're surrounded by people, yet you're vanishing inside. They love what you give, they love your support, your empathy, your availability. But they don't know you, because you haven't been allowed to exist. You've created a world where everyone is fed, except you, where your needs are an afterthought, where your silence is misread as strength, where your boundaries are treated like betrayal. And the longer you live like this, the more you become a stranger to yourself. You start asking dangerous questions. What if I stop replying right away? What if I say no? What if I take up space? But before the answers can come, guilt floods in. The guilt that was planted in you as a child. The guilt that said, you're only good if you're useful. You're only lovable if you're available. And so, you shrink again. You give again. You disappear again. This is the collapse, not of your life, but of your sense of self. Your nervous system is in a constant state of hypervigilance, not because you're weak, but because you were never given permission to rest in your own identity. And here's the darkest truth. The world will keep taking as long as you keep offering. Because when you never say enough, they assume you have nothing to lose, but you do. You're losing your peace, your time, your voice, your essence. This isn't just burnout, this is a slow erasure of who you truly are. And unless something interrupts the cycle, you won't just be tired, you'll be gone. This is where Carl Jung enters, not as a philosopher with answers, but as the man who dared to face the darkness most people run from. Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But to do that, you must first confront who you are not. You are not everyone's emergency contact. You are not a product for constant consumption. You are not a mirror reflecting everyone else's needs while erasing your own. You were trained to be these things, by parents who needed you to regulate their emotions, by a society that worships productivity and punishes stillness, by cultures that told you love means sacrifice, even if it kills you." But Jung challenged this. He believed that the soul doesn't evolve through obedience, it evolves through individuation, the process of becoming whole. And here's what most never realize. Wholeness doesn't mean becoming better, it means becoming you, unmasked, unfiltered, unapologetic. That means confronting the shadow, the part of you that resents how much you give, the rage that bubbles when you're treated like a tool, the quiet grief of being invisible in rooms you built with your own energy. You've been told to suppress those feelings, to stay kind, stay available, be the bigger person. But Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. In other words, if you don't face the part of you that's tired of being used, you'll keep creating situations where it happens again. This isn't about becoming selfish, it's about becoming sovereign. Because if you don't set the boundary, someone else will define your limits for you. Jung didn't offer comfort, he offered confrontation, because sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do is break the pattern that's killing you. The masks must crack, the roles must fall. Only then can the real you emerge. And when you do, you won't need to be constantly available, because you'll finally be present to yourself. You've spent years trying to be enough for them to stay, enough for them to choose you, enough to finally be seen. But here's the truth, you were never meant to be enough for them. You were meant to be whole for you. The world doesn't reward self-abandonment, it exploits it. And now something in you is waking up. It starts quietly. A refusal to reply right away, a hesitation before saying yes, a moment where you finally ask, what do I want right now? That's not selfish, that's sacred. You're not turning cold, you're remembering your fire. The person who once said yes to everything is learning how to say no, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. You're no longer chasing love. You're creating space for love that doesn't require your silence. You're no longer offering yourself up as proof of your worth, because worth doesn't need proof. It needs recognition, first from you. Jung believed that the path to wholeness isn't found in perfection, but in integration. All of you, even the angry, tired, grieving parts, are part of the whole. And maybe for the first time you're starting to understand, your boundaries aren't walls, they're doors. They decide who gets to come in and who no longer gets to stay, because availability without discernment is not kindness, it's slow erosion. So here is the invitation. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call you distant. Let them say you've changed, because you have. You're not here to be accessible. You're here to be authentic. Let the messages go unanswered. Let the guilt dissolve. Let the world adjust to the version of you that doesn't shrink. This is not the end of your softness. It's the beginning of your strength. You're not becoming hard, you're becoming honest, and in that honesty, you don't just protect your energy, you reclaim your life. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world told you to be small, before you were trained to apologize for simply existing. You were not born to be someone's emotional support system in exchange for scraps of love. You were not designed to be constantly available while silently collapsing. You are not here to be the solution to everyone else's chaos. You are here to be sovereign, rooted, aware, and fully you. There's a moment when a person wakes up and realizes, I don't need to explain myself anymore. I don't need to be understood to be valid. That moment is the beginning of everything. No more making yourself digestible. No more translating your truth into languages that keep others comfortable. Carl Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, and that's the work now. Not performing, not pleasing, becoming. Becoming the version of you that no longer flinches at silence, that no longer begs for company that drains you, that no longer sacrifices peace just to be liked. You're not building walls, you're building standards. You're not pushing people away, you're pulling yourself back home. And the people who belong, they'll rise to meet you. Not because you demanded it, but because you finally stopped settling for less. This isn't rebellion. This is resurrection, the return of your voice. Your no, you're not anymore. Your I choose me. The world may not applaud this version of you, but that's fine, because you're not living for the applause anymore. You're living for alignment. So let them think you're distant, let them say you've changed. Let them wonder why you're quieter now, harder to reach. The truth? You're not harder to reach, you've just stopped being easy to access by people who never saw you clearly. You're not here to be a mirror for someone else's comfort. You're here to be the flame that refuses to die. So light it, and don't look back. You've always been told, be kind and be available. Be there for people no matter what. But what they really meant was, be convenient. Don't have boundaries. Don't make us uncomfortable with your needs. And so you learn to stretch yourself thin. Emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You became the helper, the fixer, the one everyone turned to, and the one no one really saw. You feel it, don't you? That ache after another conversation where you gave and gave, but walked away emptier than before. That moment you hit reply, even when you had nothing left. The guilt when you say no. The fear that if you pull back, they'll forget you even existed, because that's what you were taught. Love means availability. Care means access. Good people don't have limits. But what if that's the lie? What if constant availability is not compassion, but a trauma response? What if being always there is a learned survival strategy, the result of years of fearing abandonment, of tying your worth to your usefulness? You weren't born to be everything for everyone. That was programmed into you, by caretakers who needed you to mature too fast, by cultures that praised self-erasure as virtue, by systems that punish stillness and glorify exhaustion. And now you're waking up to the quiet realization that maybe the way you've been living isn't loving, it's leaking. Leaking your energy, your identity, your life force. You don't owe your soul to every hand that reaches for it. You don't have to explain your silence. You don't have to soften your edges for people who only love you when you're soft. This is the pivot, from people-pleasing to self-respect, from over-explaining to peaceful distance, from being needed to being whole. Let that sink in. You've been giving CPR to connections that stopped breathing years ago. Now it's time to let go. Not from cruelty, but from clarity. And that clarity, that's the beginning of sovereignty. Keep giving, and they'll keep taking. That's the unwritten rule, isn't it? And you've been obeying it all your life. But here's what they don't tell you. The more you make yourself available to everyone, the more invisible you become to yourself. You disappear. You answer every message, return every call, show up when no one else does. And yet when you need something, suddenly they're all busy. Suddenly your availability doesn't apply in reverse. This is the cost of emotional overextension. You become a background character in your own life. Your story is reduced to supporting roles in other people's narratives, and when the burnout comes, because it always does, they say you've changed. They say you're not like you used to be, as if your exhaustion is a betrayal, as if boundaries are some form of abandonment. But this is where everything starts to collapse, because you realize the version of you they loved was the one who never said no, and the moment you reclaim your time, your energy, your silence, you become inconvenient. And maybe that's the point, because comfort is killing you. The comfort of being liked, the comfort of being needed, the comfort of saying yes when you mean, I'm dying inside. It's a slow erosion of your truth, a steady betrayal of your own nervous system, and no one will rescue you from it. No one will say, hey, you've given enough, let us carry you now. You must be the one to draw the line, and that's where Friedrich Nietzsche enters, not as some cold philosopher of suffering, but as the man who dared to say, you must become who you are, not who they need, not who they recognize, who you are. And to become that, you'll have to disappoint some people. You'll have to say less, answer less, give less, not because you're heartless, but because for the first time in your life you're healing. And healing doesn't always look like growth. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like silence. This silence you crave, it's not empty, it's not absence. It's the space where your soul starts to breathe again, where the noise of expectations fades, and your own voice gets loud enough to hear. You've been taught to fear this quiet, to fill it with doing, answering, soothing. But in that fear, you lost yourself. The part of you that just is, without proving, performing, or pleasing. You don't need to explain your retreat. You don't owe anyone a reason for protecting your peace. Because peace is not a privilege, it's a necessity. Let the world misunderstand your boundaries. Let them whisper about your distance. This is your becoming, your resurrection. And resurrection requires space. It demands silence. It calls for stillness. So when you say no, really say no, you're not breaking hearts. You're breaking cycles. You're saying yes to you. Yes to your health. Yes to your growth. Yes to your truth. This is your revolution, and it begins quietly, behind closed doors. In moments you choose yourself over the noise. So claim that space, guard it fiercely, nurture it relentlessly, because in that sacred silence, your soul will remind you who you are. Not who you were told to be, not who others needed you to be, but who you truly are. Now it's time to live that truth out loud, not by shouting, but by being, by showing up for yourself, first and foremost. The voice that once whispered, you must be available, now speaks clearly. I am enough, I am whole, I am here, on my terms. You will disappoint some people, and that's okay. Because those who truly belong will rise to meet you. They will honor your boundaries. They will cherish your silence. They will love you for all that you are, not just what you give. So start today. Turn off the automatic replies. Let the guilt fall away like dead leaves. Choose presence over performance. Subscribe if you're ready to reclaim your voice, your time, your life. Join this space where healing is radical and self-care is revolutionary. Together we'll rewrite the story, from being available to everyone to being present for ourselves. Because the greatest love you will ever know is the one you give yourself. And that love, it's unstoppable. Light your flame, stand in your truth, and never apologize for choosing you.